the indices first, and let me get this thing down. 1 second. We will start with the indices. I'm using, because the internet is weak, so I'm using the Phoenix. Anyway, the euro, as you see today, had a kind of a pullback. This is pretty much nothing to be truly concerned about. We're still above this high, and the structure point that we need is we're looking for the euro. Again, it looks okay. I mean, this is one day pullback. It is not something to be concerned about. The big move today happened in the US dollar. You can see the move today is in the overnight is in the US dollar. The dollar has been kind of moving sideways, and I don't see that as a major change, if you will, but it is strengthening. It is now at 79.58. This here is I mean, you can see that this low here was around 78. We did come down all 79.25 or something like that. We came down to the 79, and we came back up above this point. So we might be getting a turtle soup kind of a situation, pushing higher. So we're going to look for an additional strength for the dollar. The structure point, as you may recall, in the US dollar is 80.04. So we have about another maybe day or two in the US dollar. We should be looking for a day or two in the strength in the dollar. It doesn't mean that the euro would be the one to weaken. There is some talks going on. Some people are, or let's say the European economies are kind of concerned a little bit about the strength of the euro. But they fear that the strength of the euro might affect exports and affect the economies, in particularly the German economy. But until we get above the 140 range on the euro dollar, it will not have or should not have a negative impact. So again, this is just a correction, and we should be looking for it to come back. We might have one, if you look here, we got 2-3 days of a correction. So hopefully, because we are all long the euro, we're not looking for too much a correction. We had a 120 pip correction today, which is again still big, but that's the life of this market. The key one that we want to be looking at is the Japanese yen, and you can see, I mean, this is, so we have like a slight pause. That's the weekly chart for the yen. There is no reason for us to change the bias that we have on the yen, so we're still maintaining the short in the yen. We'd have liked the euro to hold its strength so that the relationship would continue, that the euro is going up and the yen is coming down. But this yen, this weakness in the yen, should be supportive of the our trade, because we are primarily short the yen. The pound, again, it is weak. It is the one that we have closed our trade in with regards to the pound yen. Nothing really has changed in the pound. The weakness remains the same. That would be the key number, I mean, which is the I will find it on the trade station. I really don't have my key numbers in front of me right now. But we would like the pound to take out this low. So having this one pause day in the pound, again, is nothing that would change the bias. We're still having the negative bias on the pound, and we should be looking for it to resume to the downside. The Canadian, yeah, we'd look at, I mean, it's kind of weak. This is good. If you look at the Swiss, this is pretty much, I mean, I'm going to look at the daily charts in a minute, but this is, again, this is just the pause that you have here. I mean, the Swiss index just came in a few pips with regards to the index, and it's going up in the same direction as the euro, and that can confirm or give us some solace that the pullback we have in the euro is kind of temporary, because it didn't come down in the same range as the euro. I mean, it did come down, as you see here on the daily chart. It is slowing down, but this is after a very big move. You got 5-6 days move to the upside, so that is just simply a pause. The Aussie in La La Land, as usual. The bias for the Aussie is still to the downside, and it is sitting around the 103.91. We're below the 104.73. We will be looking at the other structure points as we go. So in essence, looking at these pairings, I will go to the charts now. 1 second, I'll turn off the camera for a second and turn it back on. Okay, now this is the chart for the euro dollar on a daily chart, and this is the pullback that we had today. The big structure point that we are aiming at, or where the euro should be going, is the 138.38 level. We are now at 135.34. So we should be looking for a test towards the 138.38. I'm going to look at all the dollar pairs first, because I really don't have all the indexes with me here. So that is the Aussie dollar, and if we change that to our weekly chart, nothing has really changed in the Aussie. Wow, I don't have any data on this one. It is on a weekly base, it is weakening, and it is kind of neutral. So what the essence that we have in the Aussie is, there is no impetus, or there is no force, or there is no capital inflow, which is primarily the case, to push the Australian dollar higher. So what's going to be happening with the Aussie is going to be this neutral to a downward bias. And if you recall, I want you to look at this image here. If you recall the trade with the yen, primarily the dollar yen, you can see that I don't have the yen index. Let's go to the other chart. 1 second. If you look at the yen index, see this area over here? You can see that there was no impetus for the yen to go higher, and finally it started giving us little sell signals, very narrow range days, stuff like that, and then it finally capitulated. That here, that sideways pattern after a bull market, and especially when the fundamentals now confirm that there is no bias to the upside, or there is no reason that they can push the Australian higher, it should begin to roll over. The Aussie should begin to roll over and fall down. And this is the chart of the Aussie index. You can see now it is giving us this sideways pattern, and it's beginning to break to the downside, and after a while people are going to get bored with holding the Aussie dollar. What is happening here? People will get bored at holding the Australian dollar, and then they will start selling it, and it should begin to decline. We should look at it to go back towards, even towards the 95 level. This is the 95 level, or to this structure point. Once it breaks this structure point, then we should be looking for a capitulation. But until then, we really don't want to be buyers of the Aussie. The only one that we want to pair the Aussie with is the Japanese yen. So, hi survey. I have to do this kind of flipping between the charts because I'm using one screen. So, okay. So with that, we're looking at the Aussie dollar. We still want to be maintaining the negative bias on the Aussie. And you can see here, this is the weekly chart. This is exactly, if you go back at the index, it's going sideways, doing nothing for a very long time now, from the beginning, from September 2011. So that's getting close to 2 years now. So again, we're not going to be buying the Australian unless if we're going only to pair it with the Japanese yen. The euro, as I said, we're only having 1 day as a pullback. The dollar is strengthening higher. Now we're going to go to the pound. And this is the weekly chart for the pound. As you can see, it is now still sliding down. We are now sitting at the 157.46. We are below 157.82, and I think there is another structure point which is 127.28 or something like that, around this area. And I think this was the low of, what's this day's low? This is 156.87. So we did actually go and break below it, but we are now below the structure point, this structure point, which is the 158. I think this is the 158.27 right there. So this is the structure. So right now, this is a weekly chart. We should be still looking at it to continue to the downside. So to wrap and to set our positions or our biases, what we have is, for the US dollar is going to be just one slightly positive to neutral. Okay, the yen is still the big bear market, so we're gonna give it 3 minuses. That's the yen pair. The Aussie, we are going to change our bias. The last week we were positive to negative or to neutral, but this time we're going to change our bias negative to, so our initial bias is to the downside for the Aussie dollar. So we start putting the minus sign before the plus sign. Okay. The British pound, we're still negative on the British pound. And the Swiss is pretty much like the euro. So the euro we are going to be neutral, let's say, because we are in a pullback. So we're going to be neutral euro dollar, and that is also the same with regards to the Swiss franc. So I'm going to leave the euro and put the Swiss. And basically these are the primary ones we are going to be looking at trading. So we will be looking at holding long the dollar yen. We are going to be, we can still go long the Aussie yen. Okay, we can still look at taking the pound yen, and we should be holding the euro yen long, and we should be holding the Swiss yen long, and we know that the New Zealand is pretty much like the Aussie, so we will be holding. Let's chart the New Zealand also. You can see that the New Zealand is pretty much, I mean, I think it's okay. I mean, there's nothing for us to, this high is 84.78, 84.82. This one is 84.72 also. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so well, how come this high is 87? Oh, this is 80.82, and this one is 84.78, 84.82, 84. So they're pretty much the same. We cannot really call it a turtle soup or a failure. So it's still, but since the Aussie and the New Zealand are pretty much close to each other, this thing actually might roll over and die. Roll over and come down, sell off, because it is the New Zealand. So let's put the daily chart. You can see this is, it's just touching there. So I really can't call this as a turtle soup, so we're looking at it probably to hold on and come down. Okay, so going back to our euro chart, which is the one that we are holding our Come on. What happened to my... I guess I didn't save it. Shit. Okay, I'm going to do the typing again. So as I said, we are primarily going to be shorting the Japanese yen. Okay, we are going to be neutral. We're going to be neutral to positive on the US dollar, so we're going to be and the same thing with the Australian. We're negative to positive on it. Okay, and the euro we're going to be neutral, and the same thing with the Swiss. The pound, we are still negative. So with this, if we can do our pairing, we are going to be shorting the euro, shorting the yen against the dollar, against the Aussie, and against the pound, and we're going to put the New Zealand too. Today, because of the pullback, we have maybe a slight pullback would be in the euro Aussie, in the euro pound, and in the euro Aussie. But primarily, we're going to focus all our attention to the Japanese yen pairs, and we're going to look at the euro Aussie and the Aussie dollar, maybe for a chance to take a counter trend trade. So, but primarily we will be focusing on the yen pairs. Okay, so let me save the recording, and if anybody has any question, feel free to ask it.